Well, hello, friends. It's Tom Swiss here with you once again. It's been a while since I've joined you by video. It's been it's been a time, hasn't it? That's kind of what I want to talk to you about this evening. As I record this, it is the evening of September 18th, 2022, and well, the anniversaries of our bad days are kind of funny. I know that it's because I think in numbers. I think in these concrete terms. It was quite obvious to me that today is the 5th anniversary of the day my father died. I've actually been thinking about that in a very interesting context, because today is also on the good news side. Today is also 6 months into a new romantic relationship that is really important to me, and I'll talk a little bit about that later on here. But I realized my brain was kind of skidding away from that recognition until a few days ago, and it just suddenly hit me like a punch in the guts. Like, oh yeah, that's just a few days off, man. That's Sunday. 5 years since my father died. Certainly the loss of our parents is something that we're all going to endure if we live long enough. I mean, it would be even worse if I died before my father, right? I mean, that would be not something that he should be put through. But the circumstances and the amount of support we have, and the amount of support we're called on to give others, can really vary enormously. If you know me personally, you know that you may recall that my father died, and it was 1 week. It was exactly 1 week before the 1-year anniversary of my mother falling deathly ill and nearly dying. She spent over a month in the ICU, had a months long recovery process, very, very intense, and we were just recovering from that when Dad passed. And when you get hit and you don't have your balance, it really magnifies the effect of the blow. And Mom needed a lot of help to get through that, both on the emotional level and on the practical level. My mom was an RN, and she worked. She was not at all a shrinking violet or anything like that. She was not barefoot and pregnant in their relationship, but they did have a little bit of a old-fashioned traditional relationship, to the extent that Dad kind of handled the finances and logistical stuff and never really talked to Mom too much about it. And my brother, if you know that side of the story, you know that he was not exactly useful during all that time, or really since, for reasons we didn't understand at the time. It only came out since the pandemic that he's been a raging alcoholic for many years now. So it kind of fell to me to step up and get Mom through it, and it's been a lot. It's really been a lot on top of everything else that's been going on in the world the past few years. But but so it goes. The thing about shitty times is that they can be fertilizer to enable growth, if we know how to mix the shit into the soil and how to plant the seeds, and we don't just get buried in it. I mean, that certainly happens too. I'm not saying that if you've had shitty times and didn't get anything out of it, it's because you fucked up. No, it's maybe because you had an even larger ton of shit fall on you. So hey, I'm just saying, if you yourself find yourself in shitty times right now, maybe that's a way you can contextualize and say, okay, we're going to try and mix this into the soil. Maybe you can. I know that going through this experience showed me that I can endure that level of difficulty and not just collapse, not just fall apart. That's meaningful. It's meaningful to me. I mean, we all figure out what's meaningful to us, right? But the other thing it did, and this is maybe the most straightforwardly pagan aspect of all this, is that my father's death put me in a different relationship with my ancestors. Now, let me start with a disclaimer here. I am still a naturalistic or atheistic or whatever you want to call it, pagan here. I don't necessarily believe in a literal, supernatural, individual, personal survival, after death. But as I've said many times before, magic doesn't care about our metaphysics. Spirits can exist. I love the way that our friend Ian Corrigan talks about this. As well, spirits, deities, all these spirits, they can be operationally real. You don't we can get to what the metaphysics behind them is another time. But maybe it's a little bit like virtual memory. We can act like it's there even if it's not quite an accurate portrayal of what's there, but we can act like it's there and we can use it. So that's kind of my take on working with any kind of spirits, right? If you want to talk about that sometime, buy me a beer and I'll be happy to go on at length about that. But a couple months after my father's death, went to the Starwood Festival, as I do just about every year, and I tend to talk by Byron Ballard. And she was talking mostly about her what she calls her hill folks hoodoo, Appalachian folk magic kind of stuff. But one thing she talked about at that workshop that just hit me, probably because of where I was at the time, was she emphasized the importance of ancestor work. She gave a spin on it that was new to me and resolved some hesitations that I had about ancestor work. Byron's point was that it's the troublesome ancestors to whom we should first turn when we do ancestor work. She used the metaphor of, imagine you go out Saturday night to a party and have too much to drink and you really act like an asshole. And I don't know if this has ever happened to you. The dog is acting like an asshole right now, so we'll get back to him later. Not now, Mudworth. This one ate a whole little box of mini chocolate chip muffins earlier today, so I've been watching him. But the muffins were small and he's big, so apparently he's not suffering any ill effects. Anyway, speaking of spirits and such, like animal spirits over here, right? Byron Ballard at this workshop, she talking about ancestor work. She said that it's the ancestors who were kind of problematic in life to whom we want to turn in when we first do ancestor work. She said, imagine Saturday night, you got to the party, you have too much to drink, and you are just a real asshole. You're a jerk. You're a bitch. You are just, your behavior is off the hook. And you wake up Sunday morning, and you're like, oh hell, oh man, oh what did I do? What can I do to make up for? I've put myself into debt. I've really got to behave well now. I've got debts that I have to work off here. You're full of regret, and you wanna do right by the people you hurt. So what if we imagine our ancestors waking up in the afterlife, and they're pulled back from this life that they're in now, and they have a new perspective, and they go, oh man, I did not do so good when I was down there, and they want to do better in the afterlife. So that's an interesting perspective. Now let me be clear that my father was not one of those problematic ancestors. We had our moments over the years, as I think all fathers and sons do, but we got past it, and I think we were good when he passed, and I really value that. But I had some ancestors who were a little more problematic, who I know directly, and been doing some genealogy research the past few years, and find you go back up this way, you've got some found out that got some ancestors who were here really early on in the colonial process who were slave owners, and that's shit. That's not something you like to find. in the track there. So it made me kind of weary of ancestor work in general. But Byron's idea and the fact that Dad was now among the honored dead kind of put things in a different light for me. So later that year, let's see. So this is 2018. It was right around the fall equinox, so right around this time of year. I set up a simple ancestor shrine, just kind of a corner of the room with some family photos. Some of them I had gotten off of Ancestry.com, going back a couple of generations. Some that I just had. Some I gotten from relatives. And also my father's old guitar. My dad didn't really play past when he was a teenager, but still a pretty powerful talisman. That's actually my uncle learned to play on that guitar, and he still plays today. Yeah, so that's neat. And it's funny. Once you step on a path, sometimes the universe kind of like, oh, hey, here's this and this and this. Once you begin a thing, you kind of get these signs that you're on the right path. So a few months later, I got some more family photos from a cousin, and then posting about those, another cousin sent me some photos she had. Now, among those was a couple photos of my maternal grandfather, and that's really wild because I didn't have any photos of him. And this cousin is not from that side of the family. This is cousins on my dad's side. So, you step out on this path, and, the universe kind of backs you up. So that grandfather, that's my mom's dad, he was a guy, he was maybe one of those problematic ancestors a little bit. Straight up, he was racist. He was not well educated. He was a product of his times, right? He was a Depression-era survivor, and had to quit school at a young age to go work and support his parents' family, that family, and got married and signed right up when World War II happened, joined the Navy, and got wounded, fighting in World War II over there. So you can see that there's some trauma there. So how much do we blame people for their trauma, and how it comes out? And again, a complicated subject there, but it complicated our relationship, and I'll just leave it at that. But I took Byron's advice. I was at the time I was waiting for news about an opportunity in my martial arts career. I thought that I might get the invitation to test for my next level of black belt, but I hadn't heard anything. I'm like, get ready for this test. It's kind of a big deal. And so I said, okay. He did always. He always supported me. In these things as his grandson. So I said, hey. Never called him Grandpa. This was my mom's dad. For some reason, even though he was in the Navy, he decided that he wanted his grandsons to call him Sarge. Never have understood why. So I kind of reached out to him and said, hey, Sarge, I got this thing coming up, and is there anything you can do to kind of smooth the way? I can get an answer on this, smooth the way so I can take this test. Well, just a couple days after that I got my invitation to take my promotion test, and it went well. Got my test, passed. There was a big event in Sydney, Australia. It was the anniversary of our main dojo there, and so I decided, well, hey, I'm going to celebrate. I'm going to celebrate this promotion. I'm going to take myself on this trip to Sydney and attend, the events that they're having there. I couldn't compete in the tournament, but I was able to be a judge, and so that was pretty cool. And it was my first time in the Southern Hemisphere, so it was pretty magical, man. I got to see the Southern Cross and a whole new set of stars in the sky above me there. Got to immerse my body in the South Pacific, or at least in a bay connected to it. Had a very interesting string of coincidences, which led me to find some ancient rock carvings that were not like in some touristy spot, but were like hidden in the brush between the highway and some train tracks, all overgrown. And it was like a human figure, and this other like smaller winged figure, like an angel or a fairy, or it was kind of wild. Should write about that sometime. But as I was there in Australia one morning, as I was kind of just laying there in bed in a hotel room on the other side of the world from my home, it's suddenly out of nowhere, just had this certainty, in my heart and in my head that my father was working on my behalf on the other side of the veil, whatever that may mean, on one of the areas that has always been a common focus of magical work, love. My love life had pretty much shut down in those years between Mom's near death and extended hospitalization, and Dad being in the hospital and then dying, and there just wasn't a lot of energy to go looking for a date. But one thing that Dad had always said that he wished for my brother and me. My mom and my dad had a really good relationship, and he was the first to say how lucky he was, and that he wished that my brother and I would find that kind of companionship and partnership in our own lives. And somehow that morning, I was just filled with this certainty that my dead father was working magic on my behalf in that area. And it was just a few months after that, at Starwood 2019, that I met the lady who, for social media purposes, I have been referring to as the special lady friend. The special lady friend was not in a good place in her life at that time, and the world hasn't been in a good place for a while in the intervening years, so we didn't get into a relationship immediately, or we didn't even see each other in person for a while, but we kept in touch, and I kept doing ancestor work. I said, hey ancestors, anything you can do to bring me and this lovely lady together to kind of smooth the way, it would be great if it's for the best. You always want to put that disclaimer in there. If you're asking for something that involves somebody else, if you're trying to focus your energies on building something with somebody else, you don't necessarily get consent to work love magic, but you want to put that disclaimer in there that it's for the best, right? We need that kind of disclaimer. We're not trying to be exploitative. We want work that's for the best for everyone that's involved. Well, 6 months ago today, back in March, I flew south, not as far south as Sydney. We spent a long weekend together and decided that we want to pursue a relationship, and we spent Starwood together this year. I think living in a tent with somebody for a week kind of gives you a hint if a potential relationship has legs, and we'll be back at Wisteria for Autumn Fires in a couple weeks. So love you, special lady friend. But so today is it's a lot going on. My father is 5 years dead today, so I've one of his cocktails was rock and rye, so I've got a little rock and rye cocktail here to toast his memory. I love you, Dad. Miss you. And his death was a really heavy blow at a time when I was already kind of stumbling, but more or less recovered. More or less. And that experience, that transition, has put me in a whole different relationship with my ancestors, and that has put my life maybe on a whole new path here. So here's to the memory of Mark Swiss, Mr. Mark, as hundreds of kids in the neighborhood knew him from his work in local baseball rec leagues, and was known to he always just just, how many people turned out for his memorial. Co-workers, kids he had coached, folks who knew him from the community. He was was in the neighborhood improvement association, did a lot. We were telling, my mom and I were telling how he used to play Santa Claus when the neighborhood association did its food drive. Fooled me and my brother completely for a couple of years there when we were young and naive. Where's Dad? Oh, he's out doing some work today. Oh, Santa Claus is here. Young kids are easy to fool. So, love you, Dad, and thanks for everything. So the plan is to get back to a more normal writing and videoing schedule here. So please check out the posts at the Zen Pagan blog at pathos.com. And keep an eye out here for videos on whatever social media service you're finding this one. And we'll be talking to you. Take care, friends, and blessed be.